I don't know if some people in Sydney have already heard about the wrist. Sorry if you have. No? Ah, good. Excellent. So we are going to talk about the wrist today, myself and Nicole. So gather round. We need to start from the beginning. First slide.
Could we flick your attention?
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, have you memorised that all backwards in order?
Keep going.
All the way back, all the way back. Yes, that's it. Okay, and the next one is fine. Excellent. Okay, we're ready. Thank you. Wherever you like. There will be some moving involved, so you'll need some room for your wrists at some point.
Okay, so obviously we're doing the wrist, and it's a pretty captivating joint, which you are about to discover if you didn't know it already. Alrighty, so we've worked out that there's basically two aspects to the wrist. The first one is it affords us mobility. Okay, so we can reach and grasp and do other functional tasks, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then it also helps us with our stability, weight bearing, and stabilising so that we can do stuff with our fingers. We'll talk about that in a minute too. Okay, so what do you think are some different activities that involve the wrist in everyday life?
Playing the piano.
Beautiful.
Playing the piano.
Writing. Both methods.
Right.
Computer and, yeah. Everything.
Eating.
Yeah.
Cooking.
Okay.
Scratching your nose. Yes. So anything we need to use our hands for.
That's right. Anytime we need to be dexterous, really.
Could be done
Okay.
without the wrist, but
Yeah. So there you go. There's some pretty pictures for you. So a couple of things there were already mentioned. You've got the computer typing, the writing, picking up the cup might not have been mentioned. But what would be the difference between turning a knob and then turning a tap? Orientation. Beautiful. Okay. What about the little girl in the cookie jar? That's the first question. Yeah, well, she's
doing.
yeah,
Yes.
beautiful. And you can also see, can't you, that the wrist is in a different. It's reaching up and then down. So that's quite different to probably being flat and being on a laptop. So
Or
again,
an adult reaching into the cookie jar that way.
Yeah. So again, that's the orientation of what the hand's doing. Okay. So just moving on to weight bearing now. So similar sort of question, what are some things we would do to weight bear using our wrists?
Handstands.
Yeah, beautiful. Do you want to demonstrate? Okay. What else?
Demonstration push-ups.
Push up. Push being the imperative.
Pushing
word.
something.
Also, the stability, if you're not good on both sides, if you're an old person, you're going to use your hands to help you move, and that's really important to have that to help you move up and down.
Yeah.
So on and off of a chair or reaching for balance.
If you're in the kitchen and you're going to fall over, that's going to be your. This is what stops you smashing your nose with the sink.
Good one.
Star pupil. Yeah.
Crawling.
Yeah. So there you go. Margaret just mentioned the pushing if you've fallen over. Or not pushing, stabilising. Yep, pushing the couch. Being cute.
Yeah. And so,
This woman up in the top left actually looks quite hyperextended, doesn't she, through the elbow?
Yeah, she's really
Mm.
doing strange things.
so they call that falling on an outstretched hand, and that's abbreviated to FOOSH, often FOOFSH, FOOSH.
Oh.
And that's how lots of people fracture their wrists, falling and taking a lot of the impact on their wrist. Yeah. But it obviously does help to distribute the load then through the rest of your body as well if you put your hand out to catch yourself.
Yeah, cool.
So we'll talk about the bones of the wrist, but I just wanted to start with the bones of the arm. So just to, because we had the elbow joint last time, I think we were all here. So just to reiterate that the bones of the radius and the ulnar are coming from the elbow joint, so they're also part of that joint, and then they come down and form into the wrist. So you can see that the ulnar is the main bone of the elbow, and that then becomes, so it's wider at the top near the elbow, and then it becomes narrower down near the wrist. Whereas the radius is quite small, the head of the radius up near the elbow, and then that comes down to form the main wider bone at the wrist. So the ulnar's more of an elbow bone, if that makes sense, and the wrist and the radius is more of a wrist bone, but they're both involved with both of the joints. And just to show you how when you turn your hand up and down, so supinate and pronate, how those bones do cross over. So there's a movement at the elbow and also the wrist with that. And then going down into the hand area, you've got a whole lot of small little bones called the carpal bones. And we'll zoom in on that a bit later. But and then they follow on to your metacarpal bones and your phalanges in your fingers. So whoever's doing the hand, we'll talk about them. So we're really focusing on the radius, the ulnar, and the carpal bones when we're talking about the wrist joint. Thank you. So just to show you some of those carpal bones in a little bit more detail, they've got lots of different names, as you can see. The ones that are closest to the wrist are the scaphoid and the lunate, the triquetral, and the pisiform. So, and there's a little rhyme that I got taught at uni from one of our anatomy lecturers to remember the letters of all of the carpal bones. And it was some lovers try positions that they can't handle. So that's right. So and you follow it around from scaphoid around. So you still have to learn all the names of them individually, but it can help, you know, if you know the names. No. Not quite. Okay, and then next slide. So when we're talking about the actual wrist joint, most of the movement is at the radiocarpal joint. So that's shown with in colour here. So the radius is in yellow, and then the carpal bones that articulate, so the scaphoid and the lunate and the triquetrum as well.
The radius on the outside.
It's on the inside.
Yeah. Yes, so the radius is the wider part and it's near your thumb, and the ulnar is near your little finger. Yeah. And the other joint that's involved is the ulnar carpal joint. So you can see the ulnar next to the radius on the right, and there's a little disc in between the ulnar and the carpals. And then, not truly the wrist joint, but there are still movements that occur there that are important, is the distal radio-ulnar joint. So that's the joint between the radius and the ulnar. So you've got the proximal one, which was in that picture of the bones before of the elbow, and then you've got a distal one as well. So when you're doing that movement, you're getting movement at the radio-ulnar joint, both proximally and distally. Does that make sense? Haven't lost anyone with that yet? Okay, good. So next slide. So a little reminder. So with radius, wrist, so the second letter of wrist is R, might help you to remember that that's the main bone that sort of articulates in the wrist. And for ulnar, the second letter of ulnar is L, which is the same as elbow. These are all little things that I used at uni. It might not be useful for you at all, but you come up with all these random sort of things. So, yeah, take what you... Okay, the next slide. Okay, so we're going to just have a little bit of a feel of some of these bones on ourselves, if we can. So the radius and the ulnar both have pointy little bits sort of at the end, and they're called the styloid processes. So they're shown in the picture there. So the styloid process of the radius, so if you just sort of follow your fingers along the side of your forearm, so you can do it with your palm up or your palm down, and you'll feel these two little bony bits that sort of stick out, and then there'll be a little divot, sort of a little dent there. So those bit that goes in, yeah, or a softer bit kind of, yeah. So where those two bits are that come out before you get to that soft bit, they're the styloid processes. So you should be able to feel one on either side. So the one closest to your thumb is the radial bone, so the radial styloid, and the one closest to your little finger is the ulnar, or head of ulnar, they call it here, or styloid process. So, and then you feel a little bit of a gap. And then if we just go to the next slide. So just turn your palm up now. Now the little carpal bones can be quite hard to feel. So, you can sort of have a little bit of a feel just as you sort of drop off of the radius and ulnar and see if you can feel any of the little bones there. But because of the muscle tendons and things around there, they can be quite hard to feel. But there are two that are a bit easier to feel. So one is right near the base of your thumb. So you've got, and on the slide here, it's called the tubercle of the scaphoid. So it's the scaphoid bone that we're feeling, the first carpal bone there. Now, to feel the bit that sticks out, you've got the soft muscle of the thumb, and then you'll find that there should be a little lump kind of there just before you get to the styloid process. So if you feel your radial styloid, you can come off of it and feel where the soft divot is that we were talking about before, and then go up a little bit and you might feel it. Or you can come from your soft muscle of your thumb and follow that down until you feel a bit of a lump there at the base of your thumb. So that's the scaphoid bone. And if you do put pressure on it and then you sort of move your wrist around, it should feel a little bit uncomfortable. Anyone else feels that? Is anyone having trouble finding that? I'll show you later if you want. Oh, otherwise, the other one that you can often feel, and sometimes people, you've got swelling or whatever around there and you might not feel them, that's fine. The other one that you might be able to feel is the pisiform, and this one's a bit like a P. So you can have a look on the skeleton later if you want at some of these little bones, but it's a bit like a little P. And that one's near your baby finger, so follow your baby finger down, all the way down to sort of where your styloid process is, coming off of the styloid process into that little divot, and then just coming around to the base of your palm there, and you'll feel like a little P. And again, if you move your hand around, you might be able to feel it a little bit more. So they're the ones that you can sort of feel a little bit more easily.
It's quite nice to massage around there too.
Okay, and the next slide. Okay, there's lots of ligaments of the wrist. I've just put this up so that you can see that there are lots there. So similarly to the ankle, Medhavi was showing all the different ligaments. There's a lot here to consider. But if you think about the main lots of ligaments are either on either side of the wrist to stabilise the wrist that way, and on the front and the back of the wrist to stabilise that way. So if you think about ligaments a bit like there's all these bones balancing on each other, you don't want the bones just sliding off of each other. So imagine that you've got like sticky tape as an example, or however you want to imagine it. There's not a lot of elasticity in ligaments, but you've got one piece of sticky tape on front, one at the back, one on either side. Kind of makes sense so that you don't, now they're in groups, so there's not actually one and one, but you get the idea of where the main ones are for the wrist. And then there are also ligaments between the radius and the ulnar to stop them from coming apart and separating as well as you're turning. So next slide. So I'll show you what the main ligaments are, but don't worry about all the names and things like that. It's just so that you can see. So there's the main ones are the palmar radiocarpal ligament. So they're just the ligaments on the palmar aspect of your wrist. And then you've got the dorsal radiocarpal ligaments as well. So they're on the dorsal aspect of your wrist, or the back of your wrist. And then you've got the ones on the sides that I was talking about. So you've got the radial collateral ligaments. Obviously, that's on the side of the radius. And then you've got the ulnar collateral ligament on the side of the ulnar, just to stabilise. Next slide.
Okay, so now we turn to look at some of the movements of the wrist, which you're probably all very familiar with, and they're not that complicated. So we've got our flexion. Everyone do their flexion, yeah. Extension. Some people can do that better than others. Okay. Radial deviation. So facing this way, we've got the radius on the left side here. So we're moving towards the radius. So we're waving basically to the left or to the inner side of our body. Ulnar deviation towards the ulnar. And then if you make a fist, pronation is when you're turning in, and supination, turning out. And Marissa told me a good one, so turning out.
Or you can, the second two letters are up as well, so palm up. So you've got two ways of.
Yeah, so your hands don't actually have to be in a fist, do they? They just happen to be. Yeah. Yeah, we know that. Okay, so let's just do that again. So flexion, extension, radial deviation, ulnar deviation, pronation.
Yes. And again, you can do that in a different orientation as well. So that's still radial and ulnar deviation, still towards the radius or towards the ulnar. Yeah.
You might have to use these skills later. Okay. Moving. Okay, so if we could have. We've got a yes presenter. Give me a little pat. So what we do know is that the wrist is usually a dance form, obviously, quite elegant, metaphors, very elegant, which we're about to see. You could do a fantastic anthropological study of wrist dance, I've decided. You start to have a bit of a look at it. There's hula dance, there's classical Indian dance. You think about mudras, all the different types of mudras there are. Thai dance. Yeah, you know that. But Ginny's going to do a little presentation for us. Do you want to introduce what style, Ginny?
Yeah, well, as some of you know, I'm a flamenco dancer, and today I'm going to show you a dance which is from Seville. It's actually like a bit of a folk dance. It's something that everyone in Seville can dance, and they have this festival in April, and they have all these marquees set up, and you spend 2 weeks doing this dance and drinking. So yeah.
And while they're setting up that, one thing we did notice with flamenco dance, as opposed to other forms of dance, it's very held at the elbow, and a lot of the movement comes from the radius down, not really the upper muscle down. But it's coming more from the elbow down, the movement.
Everyone else get up and copy. No.
So in 10 minutes, you'll be doing that. Okay. So people could have the first clip. The belly dance.
Oh, amazing. Of the pelvis too. But you can imagine without the wrists.
Okay, so everyone's going to, if you could pop up. Now that's my little word that I say. So if everyone could stand up. Stand again then. Now I found this lovely clip. This is Neon, this lady here in the middle. She's from New York. So she's going to give you a little instruction on how to do wrist circles in the belly dance style. Okay.
An important aspect of expressivity in belly dance is articulations of your hands and fingers. Belly dance is about the hips. Hip work is what makes belly dance. But you can't just dance with your hips and feet and let your arms hang inexpressively and your head be stuck in one position. When you dance, every body part supports the fantasy image you create with your movement. Arm patterns frame your body and add dynamic flow to your movement. Hands, head angles, and eye movements add a rich emotional texture to your dance. So, let's talk about wrist circles. Here they are. Your fingers are relaxed and elongated. In a typical hand position for belly dance, your middle and ring fingers dip a bit lower than your other fingers, like this. But for now, just relax your fingers, keep them long, no tension, and rotate your fingers first inward, and now outward. Wrist circles are a lovely element of expressivity that gives your arms and hand movements that unmistakable belly dance look. How to use wrist circles in belly dance? I suggest that you start with the following use. Insert a wrist circle just before your arm takes its final position in an arm pattern or before you strike a pose. For instance, if you have an arm pattern like this, one hand to heart, the other one is extended diagonally. Here is this arm pattern on both sides. Let's add a wrist circle right before your hands land in their positions. These are wrist circles inward. So it's wrist circles and settle, wrist circles and settle, wrist circles and settle, wrist circles, and your hands take their final position. This arm pattern will be typically layered on dance walks with hip work. And here is an example of wrist circles embellishing a dance gesture or a pose. This is our offering gesture. Here it is. Now, let's initiate this gesture with the wrist circles outwards. This are our wrist circles going in the outward direction. So bring your hands to heart, wrist circles and offering gesture. Wrist circles initiate this offering gesture and flow into it. I created a video program called The Body Language of Belly Dance. Whether you're a beginner or experienced dancer, you may benefit from working with this video program. It's about the elements of expressivity that we often overlook, like gestures and poses, accents and arm patterns that turn your dance from just sequence of moves into a rich emotional experience for your audience.
What's up, Gino? Back again to show you what the wrist twirl is in locking. The wrist twirl is a fairly simple move, but it's easy to forget because you're doing so much stuff and it's just so small. And this is just a little movement that makes one of your moves look really well. So pay attention. Maybe it's very subtle in its details, so pay attention. It's basically just a simple wrist twirl. So you're going up and over, down, under, up and over, down, under. When you do it faster, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Same with the left hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. When you go fast, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So try it. 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Try the left hand. 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Switch. Hit. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now with both hands. 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 2, 4. Now shower music.
Basic stuff, basic movement, the turning. What else? Yeah, you can lock, you can do whatever you want with your wrists, okay? I want you to consider that firstly, we talked about orientation and space. So you can face different directions, you can face up, down, right, left, whatever. So just think about incorporating different elements of space perhaps to make it more interesting and add variety. And you can F it. Go to town.
So how long are we going to
We'll give you, just hold on a minute, 5 minutes. 5 minutes, and then we'll get groups of people to present after 5 minutes, okay?
Okay, so if everyone can sort of stay standing up, we're just going to give people a chance to share, but it's not, no pressure, and it's only a couple of groups at a time. So we're going to have 2 groups up here or 3?
Third lock. Third lock. All right, I'll count you in. You ready? 5, 6, 7, 8.
Oh, very fancy. Done? Oh, we're still going to get some good creativity in there. Thank you. Okay.
So if we can have the next two lots to come up the front. Yeah.
Come up the front.
You come up here.
Who's the other group? We're going to do 2 groups.
Oh, and then the next one's 3.
Where's the other group?
Over here.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh, you want to stay there, guys? Do you want to stay there? All right. Okay. You ready? 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, well done. Beautiful. And last but not least, can we have our final lot of performers up the front, please?
there's space up the front for anyone wants. Who hasn't gone? 3 groups.
Yeah, sure.
Stay.
Yeah, if you want to. Oh, we're a bit. Do you mind if you just go, because we're a bit short of time?
We've got 3 groups. 3 groups.
Are you ready?
Okay, we've got 2 groups here and 1 here.
Okay.
Oh, these guys
I'll
haven't
count
gone
you
yet.
in.
Oh, you've done it.
5, 6, 7, 8. Go. Oh, fully.
Okay, that's it.
Oh, you're all sensational.
These guys.
All right, rein it back in now.
Yeah. Okay, everyone, just well done. That's some great wrist moves. You guys know how to move your wrists. Have a sit down, find a comfy spot to sit for a bit again. Very impressive. So after all that excitement, we'll go back to to some anatomy. So you guys might have felt some muscles working in your forearms. Some of you, if you overdid it a bit, maybe your forearms are feeling it a bit now. So we're just going to talk briefly about the muscles of the wrist. So this is a picture, of the main muscles of the wrist. So on the left-hand side, you've got palm up. So these are the muscles on use my hands on this side of your forearm, and then you've got the hand turned palm down, so you've got muscles on that side as well. I'm not going to go through each of these individually on the diagram, but just to let you basically know that the extensors are mainly on this side. So if you're thinking about the muscles coming down from the forearm and crossing the wrist, they're going to pull that way. So they're going to take your wrist into an extension position. And then the flexors are generally on this side, and they tend to pull the wrist into the flexion position. And then if you think about that movement of radial deviation, the muscles that tend to be on that thumb sort of side of the forearm are going to do that radial deviation movement, and the ones on that side of your forearm are going to do the ulnar deviation movement. So there are a lot of muscles involved with these movements, and they tend to work in synergy, so they work with each other. It's not usually just one muscle doing a particular movement, they kind of work in groups. So next slide. So some of the names of the muscles that do those different movements. For flexion, you've got flexor carpi ulnaris, flexor carpi radialis, and also flexor digitorum superficialis. So they're all, kind of Latin names, and they sound really complicated, but if you just think about, they've all got flexor in them, so you know that means they're going to do flexion. Flexor carpi ulnaris, on which, so the flexors are on this side. On which side do you think flexor carpi ulnaris is going to sit? On this side? On this side. This side, the ulnar side, yeah. So, and flexor carpi radialis is going to be more on the radial side. So it kind of makes sense when you put that together. Flexor digitorum superficialis, that flexor digitorum, so it flexes the digits, and superficialis, it's a superficial muscle, so it means it's closer to the surface. That muscle also bends the fingers as well as bending the wrist, so it crosses two joints. So that's important to know versus the other ones that just cross the wrist. With extension, same sort of thing. So you've got extensor carpi radialis longus and brevis, just means there's a longer muscle and a shorter muscle. Extensor carpi ulnaris, so again on the ulnar side more you've got one that extends. And extensor digitorum, so that muscle extends the digits of the fingers but also goes across the wrist and helps to extend the wrist. For ulnar deviation, the muscles that do that, there's no ulnar deviation, carpi, whatever. So it's the extensor carpi ulnaris and the flexor carpi ulnaris that perform ulnar deviation as well. So they do more than one function. They work together to do that movement. And for radial deviation, you've got the flexor carpi radialis and extensor carpi radialis longus and brevis. And also muscle of the thumb that helps to pull the thumb out also crosses the wrist and helps with that movement. So you might not remember any of those names and that's fine, but at least when you see those names you'll hopefully identify, well, whereabouts would that be? The flexors are more on this side and the extensors more on that side, and you can identify them by their names. So next slide. Okay, so we've got a bit of an activity now. So going to get you to get into pairs, I think, with this one, and just going to get you to try some things that we've all done together in ATM and FI. So propping on your hands with flat palms, so you can prop back behind you with flat palms, and then compare that to having your fingers curled under to see if that changes anything, and then compare to propping through your fist that way, so with your wrist in a more neutral position. And just try that in propping backwards and also on all fours with a partner. And just want you guys to just discuss which position feels like it's stretching the muscles of the forearm of the wrist more, which position feels more comfortable or less comfortable for you, and how could some of these sort of restrictions impact during ATM? Well, you've probably experienced this yourself already, some of you, but how could this impact during ATM, and how could you make someone more comfortable, varying that position? Is there anything else you could do to assist? And yeah, we'll come back and just quickly share. So just 3 minutes for this activity. Thank you. I don't know if we need the box, but what position did people find more comfortable? Did most people find it more comfortable with their hands flat? Yeah. Okay.
Did anyone need to prop or preferred to sort of prop up on the fist to feel more comfortable? Did you have anything you wanted to say about that?
Yeah, pass the box over.
Having your fist gave you a little bit more elevation, and if you've got an issue with your wrist, which I do, that one worked. But we found using the fist we could actually put it in different positions and completely took the work out of using the lower abdomen. We're doing it from up here, or not really feeling as if you're working from up there.
Yeah, so you could turn your,
because you can rotate your
wrist around or your shoulder.
Thing, then and when that was in all fours, and when you were backwards, that rotation meant that you could use your pectoral muscles and your back somehow very differently, and what it led to was just having a lot more options.
So having the wrist in a different position can lead to a lot more options elsewhere. Did anyone else have anything there? they found? Or
So if people couldn't use their wrists to lean on, if they were on the ground, they could use their elbows, so like that. And
so other adaptations if their wrists were stiff or sore.
and if it was leaning back and using legs, they could perhaps lean against a wall or a pillar.
Yeah. So you could use other props and things like that to help. Yeah. Anyone else have any other ideas?
Just jump.
Oh yeah.
Using the technical term. Well, Dan discovered, and would you like to demonstrate that?
Yeah, so I got really weak wrists as well. One of the reasons why I came to Feldenkrais. And I just found that the position with the knuckles up like you, I didn't know of that position. And that it's kind of activating the different muscles from the other two groups, so and giving me more support. So it's activating like the extensor muscles of the hand and the forearm, and which I don't normally activate. So even though the fingers feel a bit scrunched up, kind of I feel well supported in the wrist.
Yeah. So there's different options so the long finger flexors and the long finger extensors I was talking about, they're the ones that also bend or extend the fingers as well as the wrist. There's a really important role of the wrist there in monitoring the length of those muscles. So if you think about if you were going to do an activity, say you were going to type on the computer for a long time, you wouldn't want to type with full flexion, of your fingers and your wrist. It's just really uncomfortable. So the wrist can put you into a more neutral position for you to do that activity. And the same sort of thing. So then when you're propping backwards, you've got those long finger flexors on full stretch. And so for some people that might be a bit too much if that's a problem. And so just by tucking the fingers, you can take a little bit of stretch off of those muscles. But yes, some of the other things you mentioned as well, just a different position to try.
I should have played last night. That's the opposite for me.
Yeah.
As my fingers curl up, I lose all movement up here.
Yeah.
So as I'm back, as it just slowly comes up, I can feel it just disappearing as I do it.
Yeah.
So same thing, but
yeah, and lots of different reasons, and maybe it's more stable
reaction.
As well with a big, having your fingers out, you've got more surface area. Yeah.
So mine's right. Just worrying.
So different. And I guess if someone couldn't get their wrist back all the way as well, we've also tried popping something underneath the wrist, like some foam padding or a rolled up towel or something like that as well to take off the stretch. That might help. Anyone else have anything different they wanted to add? Okay, thanks guys. Good. Yeah, we're pretty much done. I just had, we had a couple of other slides just on like the nerves of the forearm and things like that too. So if people are interested, maybe you could find out later because I don't want to hold things up too long. But did anyone have any questions or anything else they wanted to add about the wrist or something that they love about the wrist or that they found interesting today or before we finish? No one else wants to do a dance demonstration? Enough of that. All right, well, thank you very much for listening.